Good evening. We welcome you to the town hall tonight. I'm Tracy Busby. I'm president of the Deputy Sheriff's Association. This Sheriff's Association is sponsoring tonight's event. So we thank you for coming out, showing an interest in what's going on at this candidates night. The way we're going to run this, I'm going to real quick tell you the format that we're going to do is each of the candidates will have approximately 3 minutes to introduce themselves, and they'll tell you kind of about themselves, the platform, why they're running. And then we're going to start a series of questions that the Deputy Sheriff's Association has came up with. And we're going to say things, it's going to be 1 through 9, and we'll rotate the order with each question. And I appreciate the candidates coming out tonight and being willing to present their views. I'm sure that's what they want to do if they're running for office, but we appreciate them. John Hamilton is from pinetree.net. He will be the moderator tonight, and doing that, there will be a time they'll have 2 minutes to answer each question. If you do have questions, we'll be more than happy to take them. We have some cards that one of us will get you. You can write the question out. The only thing we're asking is that they be county-wide issues and not specific for a district, because we have the 3 different candidates for the 3 different districts here, so we have a level playing field and everybody participates. I think the questions we came up with, they just don't deal with public safety issues. They're county-wide issues regarding economy, infrastructure, and such. So I think it'll be informative, and you'll be able to have an opportunity to hear what the candidates' views are regarding those issues. So thanks for coming out, and I'm going to turn this over to John.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight. It was an honor to be asked, and for those that see me out for county functions, I actually wore pants tonight, so long pants. Normally I wear shorts. So anyway, just kidding. But I guess we'll get started on this. We'll try to keep it a little bit lighthearted, and thank you very much. Let's roll. So is everybody all excited and ready to go? Yeah? Sure. All right. And we have our official scorekeeper here, right? Should we give them 45 seconds to make sure we get to the top of that? Are you ready to? You can do that. Now, who's number 1?
You're number 1.
You're number 1.
I am number 1.
All right. Okay, here we go. With the growth of the county and ever-increasing costs of I'm more nervous than I know. I'm really nervous to do this. And it should. Okay. All right, Sarah. Sorry. There you go.
I'm Sarah Lunster. I'm running for District 4, Senior Supervisor for District 4. And first of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming this evening. All of us are really busy, and I appreciate all of you for coming out to listen to all 9 of us tell you the answer to the questions that will be asked. A little bit about myself. I have actually lived in Calaveras County for 11 years. I've been coming up for many, many years before that. While I have been in the county, I have worked as a reporter, both in the print media and on the internet and on television as well. And I primarily have covered the Board of Supervisors and local government. And if you actually put together all the time I've spent sitting in the Board of Supervisors room, it would be about 3.5 years. So I've sat in there quite frequently. I've also worked as a field representative for the California State Assembly, both for Tim Leslie and Dave Cogdill. And one of the main reasons that I'm running is because in the last 11 years I've seen the growth in the county, as most of us have, and I see the county at a tipping point, that it's going to grow in one direction or another, and I would like it to see it grow in a managed way and grow economically in a very positive way, which is why I'm running. Thank you.
All right.
Well under.
Wow, very nice. Very nice. All right.
We use the time remaining.
All right.
I'm John Morse. I'm running for District 2 Supervisor, and thank you all for coming. I'm not a career politician, and I will not say things with the purpose of making people feel good or to make myself feel important. I don't aspire to higher office or seek recognition outside the county. I was raised in Sheep Ranch. I'm a true homegrown product. After completing my service in the Air Force, I graduated from Cal Poly with a Bachelor of Science. And then I lived in Modesto for 23 years because that's where the money was. There wasn't any here. And I moved back to Sheep Ranch in '99. My mother, Julie Price, grew up in West Pine Railroad. And my father, Paul Morse, some of you probably knew him, would say to his children, don't do as I tell you. Don't do as I tell you, not as I do. I didn't agree with that then or now. As a parent or a boss or a supervisor, it's much more efficient to lead by example. And I think a good example is to lead with honesty and common sense. I believe in private property rights. County government should not deprive us of our private property rights. I know of county employees going onto private property without permission. It's illegal, shouldn't be tolerated. Even the sheriff can't do that. I believe local government should be run like a business with a large dose of common sense, not like a political machine. Construction has been the leading driver of the economy in this county, but after over 3 years, my opponent's leadership and draconian approach towards growth, I know contractors who haven't had a project in 6 months. The contractors aren't building, plumbers, carpenters, electricians, roofers, painters, restaurants, the list goes on and on, are all hurting. The national economy is part of this, but the stop growth policy of the present Board of Supervisors, led by my opponent, makes the situation in Calaveras even worse. This board needs some new blood and some common sense and honesty. I care about our environment, the water we drink, the air we breathe, the junk we acquire and discard, and I believe there are things we can do to protect these resources. But they don't require the drastic steps some want.
30 seconds.
What? District 2 is full of old water ditches. They quite successfully delivered water around the mining settlements, and we could use them again. Logging was once supported many towns in the District 2. It could play a much bigger role than is currently done if government would listen to the people who understand that industry. Why should we stand by and let Canada take over lumber sales in the United States while our own timber business and the economic support it provides?
That's it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Sorry about that.
American politics have been beset by division and defined by divisions between people. It's no accident, I suppose, because we've been listening to the likes of Karl Rove and James Carville tactically divide the American people until we can't even recognize what we have in common. In this county, we have versions of that. We have the people who have been here and the people who came here. We have people who are so-called pro-growth and so-called no-growth. We have divided ourselves by age, by location, by religion. We have found ways that our politics manage to keep those wedges deep inside our communities. And yet rural communities know better than this. We have a politics, or at least we have a social interaction that makes for the possibility of not dividing ourselves over our differences, but coming together around the things we can agree with. In my view, all those divisions matter less than one type of division, which is that, in my view, after 3.5 years in office, there's only two kinds of people around here. There's people who are trying to make this a better place, and there are people who aren't. One of the roles of government needs to be to rally people who are trying to make it a better place, find out what we have in common, and move forward. The paralysis of division and name-calling and saying that people have draconian policies to ruin economy after spending their whole life trying to make a better economy just doesn't make sense. It doesn't serve people very well, and it only deepens the kinds it only defines us around our differences. And the truth is, government, if it doesn't call on our better selves and call on us to try to accomplish things, we will find that all the talk about growth or no growth only results in nothing. In my view, there's lots of ways to facilitate good things. In this district, we've had literally scores, in fact, hundreds of community meetings in which people have begun to use their community meetings to determine what it is they do want to do. We've had all kinds of projects. We've had community cleanups. We've had economic development projects. We've brought in $4.8 million of grant money to our district and the county at large to accomplish things that people could agree on. Road improvements, the kinds of projects that people could, instead of dividing on, come together. I believe democracy works with civic participation, and I've spent most of this last 3.5 years encouraging that and appointing people from all kinds of politics to the boards and commissions that help lead this. In the end, I've gotten up every morning, worked hard as I know how to do, worked with the citizens of my district and the county as a whole, and I'm hoping that that record has proven out. There's no time to describe here in this forum all the things, but read the website, stevewolinsky.com. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tom Tryon. I'm running for re-election in District 4, which is the Angels, Vallecito, Douglas Flat, Murphys area of the Highway 4 corridor. I am the senior member of the Board of Supervisors, having been elected in 1984. At the completion of this term, I will have 24 years of service on the Board of Supervisors. Times are considerably different today, 24 years after 1984. I'm fourth generation from Angels Camp. My wife Denise is fourth generation from Murphys. I represent, I think, a district that has prospered significantly under my tenure on the Board of Supervisors. I believe Murphys is probably the most successful of the old historical communities along the Highway 49 corridor. One of the things I've worked hard for in my district is to see that we have good quality growth. I think we have had that in District 4. One of the things I emphasize strongly, and I will emphasize in the general plan update process, is the need for greater infrastructure improvement, not only along the Highway 4 corridor, but in the county as a whole. I'm very much interested in seeing the new general plan process through to its completion. Upon the completion of the general plan process, I'm very much interested in seeing a new or a revisited community plan for the community of Murphys. I think we can do much better on growth countywide than what we've been doing. And I think the number one emphasis needs to be basically on infrastructure. I look forward to the support of the continued support, for that matter, I guess, of the citizens in my district. And I'll look forward to the questions to be asked by the moderator, John. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Ron Class, and I'm running for the District 4, such as Tom is the incumbent. I came up to California, my wife and I came up to Calaveras County 14 years ago. Our son and his wife and my wife and I have businesses in Murphys and have had since we came here. We absolutely love Calaveras County. We became very, very involved on the voluntary level. I've been a past president of Murphy Community Club, past president and active member of Murphy Business Association. So we became very, very informed and very involved with the community at large. The reason I'm running, primarily the reason I'm running, is because of the economic requirements and needs for Calaveras County. Now we are, as has been mentioned here, we are at a particular point, in my opinion, in Calaveras County, where we can go one way or the other. And obviously we have the opportunities that face us are absolutely phenomenal as far as growth, as far as condition of life, as far as lifestyle. We all are very blessed to live in Calaveras County, and certainly District 4. And it's the best kept secret, if you will, in our life. We couldn't be happier here. But I am very concerned with what is going on in Calaveras County with respect to economic growth. Right now, there's a lot of services that are in question. There's obviously a big deficit in Sacramento, so we are not going to be getting the monies that we need in Calaveras County. We can't continually rely on grants. We need to find a foundation that can afford us the lifestyle that we presently enjoy. And in order to do that, we have to establish an economic and industry level of Calaveras County. And I'm not talking about steel mills or anything like that, but I'm talking about right now, it's very, very successful in Southern California. I know a number of people who are in this business, and that is the green industry. And I think Calaveras County is a perfect location to invite these companies into Calaveras County, not only to establish their businesses and to give us a tax base that we need to justify and to afford the luxuries that we have, such as our police and our education and our government centers. But I think we need the economic development in Calaveras County so that our young people that are graduating from Bret Harte, Columbia College, and Calaveras High School have an opportunity for a career. Right now, and I know this for a fact because of the businesses we're in, most of the young people that work for us, once they do graduate, have to leave because they can't just develop a career. Nobody particularly wants a job to pour coffee or flip hamburgers. What we need and what we owe our young people is an opportunity to develop a career so they can stay in Calaveras County and raise a family. And with the economic development of new companies coming in, that can be achieved. And that is basically my platform. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm Kathy Mazzacaro, and I'm running for Board of Supervisors for District 1. When I first announced that I was a candidate, inevitably, the question always came back to, why? And actually, that's the most important question that we can ask any candidate running for public office. Not just why are we running, but why do I believe that I'm qualified not to just ask for your vote, but to ask for your trust as we make some of the most far-reaching decisions that will impact Calaveras County for years to come. Well, part of that answer lies in my background. I was born and raised in Calaveras, and I graduated from Calaveras High School in 1971. I left to go to college, and I lived throughout the Central Valley, the Bay Area, a couple of years in Arizona, and then 8 years in Orange County before returning to Calaveras in 1997. I have a deep, abiding love and respect for the history of Calaveras County, and I understand those who wish that we could stem the tide of growth and turn the clock back to those simpler times, to those slower times, when we were the best kept secret in California. But the secret's out, and growth is here. And what we need to do is find leaders who will bring us to a consensus. How are we going to best manage this growth? What sort of industries and businesses? We're not going to just wait for them to show up on our door. What sort are we going to invite to Calaveras County that we feel would be good corporate partners in our community that we love so much? I've lived in areas of unbridled growth, and I've lived in areas where it was micromanaged, and neither is what I would recommend for Calaveras County. But I came back with the knowledge of having lived in areas just like that. And I have a skill set that I believe is essential for any member sitting on the board of directors. I've been in lending and finance since 1978, and I've been through the valleys that we're experiencing right now and the periods of peak growth. I bring a unique skill set because in the last 10 years, I've worked with contractors, developers, appraisers, title and escrow officers, business people, and all of the industries that it's taken to achieve the residential growth alone that we have here. I understand the frustrations. I understand some of the situations that we need to straighten out so that we can be more user-friendly for business and certainly streamline and simplify the process for somebody who wants to build a home. I have the skill set, I have the knowledge, and I've spent the last 10 years working with volunteer organizations, listening to the citizens of Calaveras County. And that's why I believe that I am qualified to ask for your vote and your trust.
Hi, my name is Zeril McDaniel, and I have lived in Calaveras County for the last 48 years. I wasn't born here, but this is my home, and it has been. I've raised 2 children here, and I also love this county. And complete and due respect to both of my opponents, I believe that I am the most qualified for this position with the most relevant experience. Values, leadership, experience will make a good supervisor, and I believe I possess all of those qualities. I believe in personal responsibility, I believe in fiscal responsibility, and I believe in being a good citizen. A supervisor must tell the truth, obey the law, and listen to the people. I'm available to be a full-time supervisor. I think I also bring something that's very unique, and it's very hard to find. And that's that I have a strong, deep foot in both communities, the Greater Valley Springs area and the San Andreas area. I have a business that I chose to locate in Calaveras County, and especially in District 1, because I believe in Calaveras County. I'm in my 9th year in the Calaveras Unified School District Board. I'm proud of the academic success, the fiscal responsibility, and the employee relationships that we enjoy. I also serve on the ROP board, which is in charge of providing jobs for people that choose not to go to college. I meet payroll every 2 weeks, and I have for the last 24 years. I know what it's like to be in business, and I know how hard that is. I'm the president of 2 merchants associations, the San Andreas Merchants here in San Andreas, and the Valley Oaks Merchants Association in Valley Springs. I have been on the Homeowners Association board for the last 16 years, 6 of those years as president. I served on the Calaveras County Grand Jury for 2 years. I was honored to be asked to hold over the 2nd year and serve as the foreperson. So I understand how government works here. I am one of the founders of Citizens for San Andreas. I've been in the trenches, working on community plans, working with the people. I believe in engaging the public, providing a vision for the future, and planning, and to bring the people together to find the common ground that we can solve the problems that we have here in Calaveras County.
Good evening. My name is Lee Seaton. I'm running for the Board of Supervisors in the 4th District. I've been a member of the City Council in Angels for the last 7 years. I was elected after serving a part of an appointed term. Like the other candidates in the 4th District, I wasn't born in Calaveras County either. My wife and I moved here because we fell in love with the location, with the people we had met, and the community that we chose to live in. That love has only deepened in the time, in the 10, 8, 9 years we've been here now. It was not only kind of a passionate love affair, it was one of those ones that matured into a respect and a regard for the community that we had adopted. In serving the community, one of the vehicles was to engage in organizations that give back to the community. I worked in the Amador-Tuolumne Community Action Agency shortly after I retired from a 20-year career at Hewlett-Packard Company. I felt that was an opportunity in the Head Start program and eventually in other agency activities to give back to the communities in our region. I joined the City Council only after actually applying for a position on the Planning Commission. They asked me to apply for the City Council. That was another opportunity for me to give back. In my careers, I've actually been a teacher in political science, so it was kind of a natural fit for me to work in a local city government where I bring both my education and my business experience as well as my volunteer activities to bear on our community. One of the reasons we selected Angels Camp as our hometown, you might say, is because it was very similar to the hometowns that we grew up in ourselves. I grew up in Texas and in Kansas in a town smaller than Angels Camp, but in a community that reached out and dealt with each other in a very direct, honest, and open manner. That's what we really liked about Calaveras and the people we met. After serving at the Amador Tuolumne Community Action Agency, I retired from that position. 30? Okay. I retired from that position, so you might say I don't know when to quit. But I was approached by a number of people who said, you know, it's really time for a change in the 4th District. Will you step forward and continue to serve another 4 years by running for the 4th District? I listened to them, I reviewed our family and where we were at and what it was right, the timing, and I agreed to serve. So I'm running and asking for your vote in order to serve the people of Calaveras in the 4th District. Thank you.
I'm Gary Toppinelli. I'm running for supervisor in District 1. I've lived in Calaveras County for 16 years with my wife, Denise, and we moved here when my youngest son was in high school. He graduated from Calaveras High. We owned a local feed store in the Burson area for a period of about 3 or 4 years, so I know how tough it is to run a business in Calaveras County. We also own a business in Stockton for the last 16 years, Steel Fabrication and Erection Company. So I'm very familiar with what it's like to run a business. I know what it's like to file a business plan and adhere to a business plan so you can accomplish what your vision is. And I'm proud to say that we followed our plan. It was tough at times. It was very hard, but we got through it. And we're at a point now where I can step back and be a full-time supervisor in this district and allow my son to take over the business. I think the reason I got involved in this race was I commute every day out of this county. And when I get on the highway to go, I see a tremendous amount of other people leaving this county to go to work in other counties. We're losing a tremendous amount of tax base when that happens. You see, actually the chamber has put together some numbers, and they've stated it's 38% of the workforce in the county leaves. That's 38% is about 8,000 people. We're losing the payroll taxes into our own economy, for one thing. The other thing is when those people leave and they're at work, on their way home, they stop and spend at the grocery stores or whatever, they go shopping outside this county, retail tax dollars are being lost. That's part of the tax base. I think the other thing is that they're buying gasoline outside. Transportation dollars are going to other counties. We're supplementing the other counties with our tax base. Calaveras Enterprise, I don't know if anybody saw it, last Tuesday they ran a piece in it where they interviewed at Treats over here in San Andreas. They went down to the Valley Springs area. They interviewed shoppers down there in the Marvell area, and they found out that about most of the people there that they interviewed said they spend 85% when they go shopping outside the county of their dollars. That's a tremendous amount of tax revenue that we're losing outside of this county. We need to get people aware and get the word out there that the tax base needs to come back into our county. Time? Yeah. Thank you very much.
And before we go into the questions, we'll make a couple minor changes. Instead of saying 30 seconds or saying what we'll do, since you'll have 2 minutes of response on the questions, at 1:45, we'll just raise the white flag, so to speak. And hopefully, if you just keep your peripheral vision, it'll be a little less intrusive than, and then if you go past too much, then we'll start yelling and screaming. But after that,
We'll raise our white flag.
yeah, here we go. All right. Okay, is everybody ready for the questions? Sure. These are some good questions. Who wrote these questions? I didn't write them. All right, we'll start off with question 1 here. Now, I guess if you want me to, the questions will be the same, and I guess if you would like me to repeat the question before you answer it, I'll go back and repeat it again, but probably only if you ask me to repeat it. Is that fair enough? Okay. With the growth of the county and the ever-increasing costs of infrastructure, how do you propose to fund the costs of those needs? Roads, fire, and public safety.
Wow, that's a loaded question. Well, I think it goes back to actually partnerships within the community. I don't think that any one stakeholder should be footing the bill for the costs. Now, I think everybody needs to pay for their fair share. And as far as fire goes, I mean, there's different models in the county. There are some up in District 4, Arnold, well, that's Marita's District 3. They have supported their own fire services through their own tax assessments, and I think that's a valid way of supporting fire. As far as infrastructure goes, I think it has to be sort of a cooperative between local government and developers, whether those developers be economic developers building business parks or residential developers. But I don't think they should bear the full brunt of the cost because everyone is actually using the infrastructure that is going to be built. So I think it's sort of a complex question, but I think basically my basic answer is everyone who is involved and who uses the infrastructure needs to pay some sort of price to build it.
Would you like me to repeat it?
No, that's not necessary. I understand the question. I'm thinking a lot of that burden is going to have to be on the developers, that they're the ones that are going to profit from the sales. Therefore, they're going to be responsible for the putting it in. Fire is continue to support it the way we do now. Taxes, assessments. That's enough for me.
All right.
Well, I'm particularly proud of how District 2 has handled its fire. And part of that was grassroots organization and effort with an honest dialogue between our fire districts and the people of the county about what levels, or the district, about what level of service they wanted to see and how much it would cost to do that. Central Fire got an 84% vote, I believe, and 2 of the people who helped do that are right in this room. We had Milk Hill vote overwhelmingly for the same, and West Point joined them. So every single fire district in our District 2 has managed to win a vote. And that's also a model for what else should be going on all of these things. Government has to be honest with people. It's true that a RIM fee that was adequate to do roads. We only have about 30 cents on the dollar right now for new development. We take care of new roads. But we're falling $600,000 or more behind each year on just maintaining what we've got. And that requires us to have an honest dialogue with the citizens of this county about what exactly, for the stuff that RIM fees won't pay for, what are people willing to pay for the infrastructure? What kinds of roads, what quality of roads do people want? Hiding, ducking, bobbing, and weaving, or trying to trick people in votes that don't really have an honest aspect to them is not going to get it done. People are going to need to be given choices about, again, level of service and cost, and we should step up and present those things honestly. Public safety is actually something a little different. We've had one vote, and again, that was in the same mode, where people said, do we want a jail, do we not want a jail, and people voted for Measure J. But there are many other things with public safety that are important. For instance, in this county, a lot of the costs of public safety have to do with meth and other addictions. And if we don't get into the education prevention aspect of this, we'll continue to have high costs, fill our jails up, even new ones, and still not be safe. So I believe that's a much more comprehensive approach. I think I'm out of time, but there's lots more to talk about on that one.
Your question basically asked about roads, fire, and public safety. Quite frankly, new construction pays more than their fair share at this point for infrastructure updates, particularly when it comes to basically sewer and water, where they have to come in and put in new lines to service their facilities and new capacity for the water and the sewer plants, et cetera. When it comes to road, new construction does. We are doing very well now, finally, on new construction as far as getting them to pay their cost, particularly on-site. They also pay a fair amount of cost off-site, fixing intersections, et cetera, that they have a direct impact. We have a road improvement fee for new construction. The question becomes, how do we fix, because state law says you basically can't extract something from new construction unless you can show that there's a direct relationship and benefit back to that new construction. So the question becomes, how do we improve the roads that currently exist? And that's a dilemma that is currently before the board. It's going to have to be addressed basically through some form of tax increase. Most communities have done it through a sales tax increase that goes to roads, and that's most likely. I don't know of any other way you are going to fix the roads outside of the new construction without an additional source of funding. Secondly, the board has to give much more of a priority to roads. The board has not given a high priority to roads. They give a much higher priority to transit. Steve says, well, geez, we're falling $600,000 a year behind in maintaining our current road system. Well, the subsidy that goes from roads to transit that used to go into roads is a little bit more than that. So the board needs itself to give a higher priority to the infrastructure, and that's one of the reasons that I'm up for re-election, is to emphasize infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. I happen to agree with what Tom has just said. I've looked into it in a number of different ways, and I happen to agree with him. With regards to the future in those three categories, there's another complete story. We're ever growing. Obviously, as we've all agreed, that growth is coming to this community. We can look at the budget as we're looking at the paper today with 2.3 million in the hole so far, et cetera, et cetera. The monies are not coming out of Sacramento like we wanted it to. And I think we have to control our own destiny. And I think the way we do that in our destiny is the future, of course, is that we must establish a revenue developing system in this county. And that would be either tax base for companies or retailers, clusters, retail industry centers, so that we can financially support what we need for the future. I think the Calaveras County Government Center has been working on the existence. They're thinking of now and yesterday. I understand the frustrations that they are faced with on a day-to-day basis, but I still say that as a representative of your district, you also are hand-tied to the other districts, because the Calaveras County is a county. And whatever we do, we affect each other. And if that means revenue sharing, that means revenue sharing. If it means that the counties will establish an industry or an opportunity for companies or retail organizations to come into this county, then they must confront that and look at it as a future investment rather than an existing investment. And I think by investing in the future, those problems with regards to the dire need for police and security And our roads, of course, will take care of itself if we manage the county as a businessman would manage his business. Because we have to look at the return on our investment so we can be satisfied with the direction of the future. Thanks, John.
Well, infrastructure is one of those more complicated multi-phase issues that we're going to have to face. And we're not going to be able to do anything about it without a revenue stream. But it's one of those, well, which is going to come first, the chicken or the egg questions. Because in order to attract businesses to Calaveras County, we're also going to have housing for their workers. And in order for that to happen, we're going to have the infrastructure, the water, the sewers, the power, the law enforcement, the fire protection, to take care of it. So it all goes back to where do we get the revenue stream to provide for the infrastructure. Now certainly we can ask the developers as they come in the future to pay for their fair share. And certainly we can discuss different tax programs for different districts, such as the one in Marita's district does for their fire protection. But another avenue to explore is the grant process that's available for any rural county within the state of California. There are grants available for the protection and the renovation of water systems. There's a small community in Northern California that recently received one, and you'll forgive me that under the pressure of the moment, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the town. But they actually did have a problem with crumbling water tanks. They were literally falling apart. And those grants are available. So in order to entice the revenue stream, which means businesses that we want and industries that we encourage, we're going to have the infrastructure first. So we're going to need to go out and research those grants that are available, entice those businesses that may be less of a drain on the system, and then bring in those employees, build those houses, grow that tax base, and then we'll have the revenue stream to address the infrastructure.
Kathy's right. This is a very complicated issue, and it is the chicken or the egg or a dozen other things that play into this. One of the first things I believe that we need to do is we need to have clear rules for development. Our developers come into our county, and it takes between 6 and 10 years sometimes to get a project through, and part of it is because the citizens are demanding certain things. We might want flood control, we might want drainage, we might want housing. There's dozens of things that we want. We need to have the ordinances put in place, the Oak Ordinance. Marita has talked about the Dark Sky Ordinance. There's a lot of different things that need to be put in place. Now maybe we need to set a baseline for what is so right now, so the existing population is paying their fair share, but any new development does need to take responsibility for the new growth. As far as public safety goes, I think that we should all be very grateful for our first responders, and that includes the Sheriff's Department, includes fire departments, includes CAL FIRE, includes ambulance. My husband's a retired policeman, and I know the issues involved in law enforcement. These men, these women, put their lives on the line every day when they go out to save us, to take care of our property, to take care of an accident that might go on. There's a lot of training involved, and these men and women need the best equipment, they need the best training, and they need wages that say, we appreciate what you're doing. I think that the Board of Supervisors, it's a responsibility to take the lead in this. Let's build public support for paid firefighters. We have a lot of volunteers that put their own time in to train and to fight fires and to be there when we need them. Like I said, Sheriff Department, firemen, they put their life on the line every time they put on a uniform, every time they go out to help us. We need to be on the front lines supporting them. If it means, I know times are tough, but we need to find ways to make this happen.
Essentially, infrastructure is the foundation for the quality of our lives. It's that simple, that immediate. Without adequate infrastructure, we will lose the very things that we treasure about our communities. In the city, we take that responsibility very directly. I'm glad to say that in the time I've served in the city council, not only have we managed to balance the budget every year, but we've been growing appropriate reserves because in our democracy, things don't only go up. Things do go up and down in the economy. And if you don't save for those rainy days, it gets awfully cold and wet. We have reserves appropriate to the city, and we built those reserves by making the cost of development pay for itself as we go forward. But that does not address the deficit for prior years in which development did not pay its own way. I strongly disagree that development is overcharged in our county. In the city, we charge what is appropriate, and we do studies to ensure that those charges are directly linked to the impact of the developer's project. It's basically a nexus between the two events, the development and the impact. We charge no more than is calculated and no less than is required. That's the basis for going forward. That's the way we stop digging the hole in the county. The second component of that is that when you have growth, and we've had a very good run of growth, that's the appropriate time to set aside stuff. But it's also time to increase expenditures in those areas that growth brings with it, such as the need for police and fire. I have supported the professional addition to our police department, as well as the first paid firefighters in the history of Angels Camp. But I'll talk more about this later. Thank you.
John, can you ask the question again, please?
Sure. With the growth of the county and the ever-increasing costs of infrastructure, how do you propose to fund the costs of those needs? Roads, fire, and public safety.
Well, I think you have to start somewhere, and you have to, when I'm in business and I need a piece of equipment, and it costs a lot more than the money I have to find creative ways. And one of the ways you do is you go out and you sell yourself to somebody in order to fund it. And I think that's what Calaveras County has to do, but it has to have something to offer to sell itself. I propose that we have developed an enterprise zone inside the county that would give tax breaks to a company that's willing to relocate itself here. I think the county itself should give tax breaks to entice companies to move here. That way you're selling yourself and giving them something to come in and put their money forward and develop it. I think you will find chains out there. You will find industrial, commercial businesses out there looking to relocate, expand their business, and they're willing to spend their money to put in some infrastructure or whatever it takes, as long as they know in the long range they're going to get it back. And there's something in the county that you have to, there's somebody in the county that's willing to help them. I think we also need to show that we're serious about it, and I think we need to develop and get a satellite campus here from either Delta College or another junior college. And for one thing, that would give our kids coming out of high school a chance for higher education here in the county itself, and not have to leave the county for higher education. It would also develop education jobs in the county. These are ways that we can do very much for very little. And we would entice companies. I know I would be enticed to relocate my company here if I knew I was going to get tax breaks, not only at payroll, but at state level also. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are tough questions. I mean, that was a tough round. So the next one's even easier. Now that you've solved infrastructure problems, now we're going to move on to revenue. Question number 2. A large amount of our sales tax dollars are being spent in neighboring counties. How do you propose on keeping those dollars here?
That's my question. Sorry. All right. I remember the rules. Gary brought it up. Enterprise zones make sense to have retail establishments in our county that would, so our sales tax stays here. There's been some talk about big box stores, and this county is less than 50,000 people in the whole county. I don't believe that you could get a big box store to put anything here anywhere in the county. They've got them, right there and right there on both sides of us, 3 sides of us. So why do another one? From their point of view. But we're going to have to do something to keep our tax dollars here. So little businesses that could bring in some retail sales would be the direction I would go. Thank you.
Well, to stop the bleed of dollars out of this county, we first got to get some kind of idea of what it is we have in the way of assets and begin capitalizing on them. There are many reasons why people would come here and spend their money. I was instrumental in bringing, for instance, the Sierra Century Bike event to this county last year, and they dropped approximately $300,000 on us in just one weekend. That's always great when people come, leave their money, and go home. One of the things, however, that everybody's talking about growth, everybody's talking about the need to be able to buy a pair of socks somewhere in this county, and all of that is well and good, but it's a pipe dream until we get the infrastructure necessary to house this stuff. And secondly, it's a hopeless chasing of chimera unless we've had the kind of dialogue that results in a consensus about where these things ought to go. I talked earlier about the need to find out what it is we agree on, but instead we've devolved into a no-growth versus anything-goes attitude, pegging oppositional camps into gridlock to the point where we're able to stop any initiative, but unable to agree on something and move forward. If you've got infrastructure, you'll be able to bring in business. But if you can't agree on where to put it, and if you've got litigation that stalls it off forever, nobody will come to that kind of arrangement. So part of it is our own political gridlock and our need to develop a planning process that gets a clear picture about where we should zone this stuff, where we should be building infrastructure. And finally, in my view, one of the great impediments to that is the fact that in a tiny county with less than 23,000 water hookups, we've got 12 agencies providing water. We have sewer districts that are bankrupt and almost unable to provide services, and yet we keep flogging that dead horse, hoping that somehow we'll be able to build on it or ride it into some great economic success. Time to consolidate, folks. Time to get people working together so that we have critical mass.
It's nice to see my fellow board members and the aspirants all on the infrastructure bandwagon, since I've been so lonely there for so long. But it's nice to hear people talking Tom Tryon back to Tom Tryon. But we need infrastructure, and I will talk basically about my district. If we are going to have significant retail, I think it will take place in the City of Angels Camp. The City of Angels Camp is ideally situated. They're right at the intersection of Highway 4 and Highway 49. They're perfectly positioned to service the entirety of the Highway 4 corridor, and they're ideally situated to service a significant component of the 49 corridor, including San Andreas. So if you're going to, and the City of Angels already in Altaville, which was annexed into the city here quite a few years ago, have two shopping centers that are already providing a significant amount of retail. They're already, in my opinion, on the Highway 4 corridor, the financial center for the Highway 4 corridor. So I think you're going to see that type of development take place because so much of it depends on location. Is in the vicinity of Angels Camp, whether it's within the city limits or in the vicinity, I think it will be there. I think you will see Murphy's continue to grow, and Murphy's is a very vibrant retail community, but we don't basically have the same type of retail for clothing or the like, sporting goods, etc. But a lot of this comes down. It comes down to location. It comes down to infrastructure. It comes down to design. It comes down to a regulatory and processing governmental processes that will work in an efficient manner. Thank you.
Well, I think we ought to have home security build a wall around Calaveras County, and we hire more detectives, more sheriff's department, and let nobody in or out. What do you think? Yeah, this question's been asked and asked and asked and asked. There's a lot of things that we need in Calaveras County, but it's something like what you do each month when you sit down and make out your bills and you send a check to your house payment and your grocery, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the county has to have a checkbook too. And those things that we need or think we need or want, we have to find a way to pay for those. And the way that we pay for those is elementary if you take in a couple steps. One, we need to have a financial foundation in Calaveras County that will afford us the infrastructure that Tom is talking about and Steve's talking about. We need to have the financial structure in this county to afford or to alleviate the problems that we're already looking at, such as the EMS, emergency medical services in question as to whether or not the people of our Calaveras County can be safe. I mean, these are the problems that the Board of Supervisors are confronted with daily, weekly, or monthly. And we need to have solutions to these. And the only way we're going to have solutions to these problems, because these are services that we really need and require for our senior citizens, for our residents, for our children, and also for our tourists that come up here. They need the police services, they need the EMS services, and they need obviously the fire services. The way we can afford those is if we have money in the bank. And the way we have money in the bank is we develop programs to invite commerce into Calaveras County that will not only give us the monies for those particular services that we need and require, it will give us the opportunity to offer the children of our county a career that they must need, or most certainly deserve, and should have an opportunity to have. And that's my answer to that, John. Thank you.
Well, John, right now I feel a little bit like I did when I was a teenager and used to play telephone, and something will start at one end of the table, and by the time it gets to the other end of the table, would you mind repeating the question?
No problem. A large amount of our sales tax dollars are being spent in neighboring counties. How do you propose keeping those dollars here?
Well, I believe we can keep that here if we can strike an effective balance. First off, we need to be far more supportive and far more streamlined to the small business owners that we already have here. We need to make it user-friendly for somebody to want to come in and buy an older home, renovate it in a commercial zone, and turn it into a restaurant, turn it into a boutique. Because right now, I see one of the largest impediments for sales tax dollars is the actual planning and process to try and get that business open. 80% of the businesses throughout the United States are small businesses. Our economy is driven by the entrepreneurs. And until we get out of the way and provide a far more understandable, accessible, streamlined process for small business owners to open and operate a business in Calaveras County. That revenue's not coming in. At the same time, we do need to be more encouraging to larger businesses. I'm not a big fan of box stores because traditionally they're going to want far more tax abatements than I may be willing to give away just in order to get them here. But there's certainly something to look at, as is light industry. We need to be proactive and discuss with the communities we represent. Okay, San Andreas, what sort of businesses would you welcome to, say, the old airport site outside of town? Okay, Valley Springs, we've got a light industrial site out at Toyon on the other side of the highway from the middle school. What sort of light industries or businesses would you welcome? And then go talk to them. Be proactive. Don't wait for the businesses to show up at our door. Go get them.
Well, being one of those small business owners myself, I work very hard to attract the customer into my store. As a business owner, you have to be very progressive and be changing all the time, and customer service is a huge thing in a small community. But as far as tax dollars goes, I understand what Tom said, but most of those tax dollars, when they spend them in Angels Camp, stay in Angels Camp. They don't go to the county necessarily. But we do need to attract more goods and services, so our people, so people will want to spend their money here. So they'll have an option of spending it here. If I want to buy shoes or clothes, I don't have a lot of options. Another thing, I'm wondering if the public really realizes when they purchase out of the county, they might save a few dollars. They might spend a lot more to get there. But do they realize that those tax dollars benefit our county rather than Amador, Tuolumne, or San Joaquin County? One other thing is I think that we need to recognize our assets. Agriculture, tourism, our gold rush history, recreation, open space, oak trees, the unique identities of each community is a real asset. We need to build on them, we need to brand them, and we need to protect them. Because that's the reason for tourists to come here and spend their dollars in our towns. Kathy's also right about listening to the people. In San Andreas, we did a survey here of over 200 people responded, and we found out what people care about. We found out what businesses they want, what kind of industry they want. We need to do that in every community, because the people of the communities are the ones that are going to drive what happens in those communities. And I think that's very important to keep in mind, that we listen to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for the endorsement of the City of Angels as a good economic development site. We certainly have worked hard to make ourselves attractive to both existing retailers as well as people interested in coming to our community and participating in our own development. But we need more than just one successful city in the district and in the county. And that's one of the reasons why a 10-step plan that I've presented to the Economic Development Summit, which was chartered by both the city and the Board of Supervisors to address the county-wide issues of economic development. As part of that 10-step plan, one of the elements is to develop a revenue-sharing model that would prevent communities from getting into conflict or into competition with possible new businesses, and so that we all work towards the common interest of the citizens of the county as a whole. We need to do that in order to level the playing field for everyone. But also we need to look at growing our own attractiveness. In the city, we have developed a number of workshops. Virtually all of them have been paid for by grants that we've been able to acquire through community development activities. Those workshops have helped local businesses understand how to engage more successfully in retailing their products, not only to the people who live in the city, but also the people who pass through the city as tourists or transients. The local businesses do have the capacity to sell shoes and socks and clothes. Just ask the Turners. We do have the resources. We need to expand and enhance those resources. The way to do that is to create more value-adding businesses. That's why we conducted the branding study, the retail study. We're working towards empowering the people to actually pursue the American dream here in Calaveras County. Thank you.
What was the question again?
A large amount of our sales tax dollars are being spent in neighboring counties. How do you propose keeping those dollars here?
Well, I'll tell you, if gas is $6-7 a gallon, they're not going to be going to spend their money in other counties. 38% of them aren't even going to go to work, I tell you. I think you need to sell the county to the people that live in the county. I think that they need to be aware that their tax dollars they're spending outside the county are taken away from the public safety and all the services that they all expect the county to provide to them. I think slogans needed to be developed, such as "Live Calaveras, Buy Calaveras." This needs to be printed on the buses that service the districts. And you need to get the word out there, and you need to do it by spreading it through a slogan or some type that the county gets involved in at the government level. And, you know, I'm not in favor of big box stores either, but I'll tell you what, most of the people who are going outside this county to spend their money are going to Costco's, Home Depot's, Walmart's, and what have you. That's where most of the dollars are going. So if you're not in favor of big boxes, and I tell you I'm not, you need to really think about that, because that's where it's going. They're not spending their dollars here locally by buying pants and shoes or even groceries. They just use the local markets as spot times when they need something to run down for an errand to get. And that, like I said, brought up earlier in Calaveras County Enterprise, that issue was one of their articles last Tuesday. Thank you.
Well, now that we got through the tough questions, I'm sorry, we're having moderator malfunctions here. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, when I first moved to the county, people who had lived here for years said to me, make sure you buy in Calaveras County. And I tried very hard to do that. But really, having a young family, it was impossible for me to do that. And I think it's not so much the sales tax bleed that goes out of the county, it's the lack of opportunity for value shopping here in the county. Now, you know, a lot of people say they're not for big box stores, but I am, because as a young family, you save money at big box stores that you cannot save by shopping here in Calaveras County. Now, I agree with Tom Tryon, I hate to admit it, but I do believe that Angels Camp is the best place to put larger retail. And when I say a big box store, I don't necessarily mean a Walmart. It could be a Mervyn's, it could be a Sears, it could be something that we do not have in this county that will serve the people who live in this county and have an average income, median income of $41,000 approximately. That's not a lot of money. They don't have a lot of money to spend at our boutique retail stores. And we need to make sure they have shopping in the county. Obviously, there's infrastructure issues that go along with it, and that's why we need to partnership with these retailers who want to come in. But I think we really need to decide who we want to come in, and then make a plan with that particular retailer, those particular entities, and make it work for us. We need to be able to make it work for us, and we need to be able to shop in our own county.
You want a 5-minute break before we go into the next one? No? You're already
people.
Only if the audience does. They're the ones who've had to sit and listen to all of us.
Are we somnambulating yet out there?
All right, let's keep
Okay. All right.
Yeah, now that I said a little earlier, the questions are getting easier now.
Oh, yeah.
All right. How would you prioritize the needs of the county government, and what do you think are the most critical functions of county government?
I think county government has 5 basic aspects, and I think they have to work as a team. Unfortunately, we have 22 different departments trying to deliver these, but I think that there is a health and human services aspect which I value highly, and it has a relationship to public safety, which I described a little bit earlier, but I think that these, if they are played against each other, we wind up failing in both categories. We have we have planning and public works, that is land use essentially, and how we deal with our infrastructure. We have the need to produce revenues and to deal with administrative aspects, and this county has never consolidated that effort, so that we wind up, and as people describe their interaction with this county, it is often unfathomable, inscrutable, and that we keep on sending people to different places and they get different answers for the same thing. So, in my view, it's not a question of pitting these things against one another, but making them seamless as part of a whole, and understanding that we're much more efficient and much more effective when we consolidate effort, and when we have, as an example, law enforcement, 75% of people in our jail, 75%, over 3/4 of the people who are involved in domestic violence, in child abuse, have a meth or alcohol addiction in this county. How do you deal with it from just one piece without understanding the other? And so for me, it's not a question of who's on first, but can we develop a seamless system of delivery of service? Can we do that in response and in conjunction with people who receive those services, so it's not just a few people trying to decide what you need, but having a constant dialogue with the citizens of this county as to what their priorities are, and make sure that we're reflecting that in both attitude and customer service, and the structure that actually mitigates toward delivery of service.
How we prioritize the incremental dollar is always a huge political debate when it comes to adopting a final budget. Because quite frankly, the adoption of the final budget takes all the money that the county is allocating to that budget and prioritizes it. And we decide, do we want to take an incremental dollar from the library and give it to community development, or do we want to take an incremental dollar from public health and give it to law enforcement? What do we want to do? The final prioritization is the adoption of the final budget, and that's where at least the majority of the board says this is the priority for the coming year. That's just a simple fact. As I look at, say, what's most important within county government, I will tell you what I think is most important within county government, and I've said this many times publicly, are the engineering positions in public works. If we don't get new construction right, we are just behind the 8 ball for, it seems like, eternity. We have one time to get new construction right, and that's when new construction is constructed. And if we don't get the engineering right, we don't get the drainage right, and we don't get the roads right, and we don't get the road base right, we are just forever behind. The most important, in my opinion, department in county government, even though not a lot of general fund money goes to it, is public health. If we don't get the communicable diseases under control, and we had an outbreak of some sexual diseases at the high school, if we don't get the foodborne diseases under control, etc., I don't care what your economic status is or where you live, you're impacted, or you have a chance of being impacted. When it comes to the general fund, always public safety in the sheriff's department has been the highest priority. The sheriff's department, I believe, is almost 1/3 of the general fund. Thank you.
Well, I have to think that obviously the final budget is far more value to the prioritizing of the county's needs and requests. But to address that in my particular frame of mind is that, one, I think in order to put a priority on certain areas of the government, the number one priority, even though it may not fall under the constraints of money, is I think the first priority is that our government, Calaveras County government, has to be transparent. And I don't think it's transparent. I don't think it's been transparent for quite some time. The Ray Waller incident is a perfect example. I think we have to accept the responsibility. We, the Board of Supervisors, who are people who are elected by us, the responsibilities of not only the successes, but also the failures of the county. And I think that we are allowing our county and our county governments and our Board of Supervisors to faint in that particular area. I think it's very responsive, and it's very responsible for our government, our Board of Supervisors, to understand what each district needs, what each district can afford, and establish a plan to afford us those opportunities. I think that's what the Board of Supervisors need to do, and that is how you prioritize it. Because if you put a priority list together, each one of the Board of Supervisors will have a different list. I also think the Board of Supervisors should be work as a unison group. I think they all need to work on, no, obviously they do work on the budget, but I think they also need to come into a position saying that there are certain needs in certain districts that are more important than possibly their own. But transparency in government, honesty with regards to hiring, training, and terminating, I think is extremely important for us.
Well, I view prioritizing as it starts with the hub of the wheel, and the hub is going to be the Board of Supervisors. And they have to provide the leadership. And by leadership, you need to be out there in the community, being accessible, being available for the citizens to talk to you so that you can find out what's going on in your particular districts at any time. The budget is going to be pretty much constrained by what we're told from Sacramento. And we're going to have to be the ones out there talking to the citizens and telling them, here's how much money was in that pie, and here's how it's divided, and this is the best we can do. We're in some very, very difficult economic times, and I don't see them getting better in the foreseeable future. And the best way we can hold this county together, instead of seeing it blow apart, is to be, as Ron just said, is to be transparent. Here's the budget. Here's why we made the choices that we've made. Certainly, from my perspective, I agree with Tom. Health and safety has to come first, especially taking care of those who are the most vulnerable, the most in need. And that's going to involve more than just what we can get out of the government pie. The Board of Supervisors needs to lead by example. One of the things that I'm the proudest of is my community activism. And that's being involved in any number of organizations and nonprofits in the 11 years since I've moved back home. And those organizations are going to become critical, especially until this national economy problem is solved. One of the things I'm in full support of and would like to see us encourage more with regard to the health and safety is let's be sure that we let the retired citizens in good health know that their services would be valued by our Sheriff's Department as volunteers to help stretch out the meager resources we have until things get better.
Could you repeat that question real quick?
How would you prioritize the needs of the county government, and what do you think are the most critical functions of county government?
Well, I think I've always said that visioning is one of the things that I think has been lacking in the past many years, and planning. I think I don't disagree with Kathy. I think, and I always advocate for this, and I always participate in it. Is the public participation, is talking to the public, engaging the public, keeping them engaged. Because that's what will provide transparency. That's what will provide the clarity that the public needs. I think, again, that public safety is probably the most important thing that the county, the government should provide for the citizens. Our citizens should always be able to feel safe, and that to know that if their house is on fire, a fireman's going to be there. If they have a problem that they need the sheriff's department, that the sheriff's going to be there. And I think we expect that, so we have to take care of that. Again, the planning, our infrastructure and the planning is critical, that we think about those kinds of things and that we care about those things. Public health is of course, really important. I have an elderly mother that I help take care of, and I understand the needs of seniors. I understand the health issues. The services for our community, the libraries, any number of things that the county the community counts on is all important. But again, I think visioning is probably one of the most important that should come first.
Well, how would I prioritize? Well, I'd listen to the people, not only those that I represent in terms of the district, but the people of the entire county, because we are all in this together. Fundamentally, the first priority in a democracy is for open government. This is the people's government, and we are your representatives. You're entitled to respect, to be listened to, and to be heard in every public forum. It's too often that people have been chastised for their public comments. I think that's unacceptable. We need to respect the voice of the people. That's the fundamental premise in any active democracy. Secondly, my priority would be that we also need to have sound fiscal management. Nothing's worse in a business, and I'd had a 20-year business career, nothing's worse than discovering that you've been misaccounting for years and you now have a gap. Not only do you have not the money you thought you had, you now have a due bill that you've got to pay it back because you didn't manage it properly to begin with. That's serious. That's a double whammy. If we don't get the fiscal picture right, we cannot hope to have an equitable budget. I think also public safety and health are critical attributes of the way we want to live our lives. We're an open community. We are a community that people typically don't lock their doors every time they step out. We're not afraid to go out at night. We really enjoy those. Those are all things that as we develop, as we grow, we need to make sure that we're attending to those issues by properly staffing the public safety departments and the public health departments. Public works is a critical element in any community, but it needs to be viewed as mobility options, not just patching potholes. We need more diversity in the way in which people in our communities can get around so they can get to those shopping areas that develop in wherever they develop. And finally, we're not in this alone. We have a regional and an intergovernmental relationship that we need to attend to. We need to reach out to our partners.
Critical function of government. I think the most critical function of any government would be to provide public safety to all the people that live within your districts. Certainly the priorities, certainly budgets would dictate any priorities out there, but I think public safety would be ultimately the number one service. Human resources, planning, public works, all of these are certainly critical to a functioning government and what people expect that live in the districts or the counties where they live. Certainly, any government when it sits down to prioritize any situation, needs to listen to what people and constituents in their districts have to say. This is something that that has to be done for transparency in any government function. Thank you.
The most critical function of government is to serve the people. And that's why we all go through this process. That's why we have a representative democracy. And part of serving the people is to balance the budget. This is not the county's money that it's spending. It's the people's money that it's spending. And because of that, it has to be spent wisely. Now, as far as the budget goes, public health and safety, as has been stated many times before, I think is a top priority. It is our responsibility, any of us who get elected to any board, to fund public health and safety so that it serves the people. Thank you.
I think the critical area would be public works, because I drove some really crappy roads in this county. Like the road between Railroad Flat and Wilseyville. What a miserable road. And the road between Sheep Ranch and Murphy's, that's another one. And Tom, Tom's right. If you don't get it right when you first put it in, it's probably going to be that way forever. And that's the way those roads are. Public safety, another very important issue. I agree with Sarah. The budget is there so it's spent wisely. It's your money. We need to spend it wisely as a board of supervisors. Thank you.
So we're just getting warmed up? All right. Question number 4 is... Ready? All right. And this gets into law enforcement stuff here, so this is a little bit. All right. Okay. With the proposed construction of the new county jail facility, once completed, how do you foresee paying for the additional costs of staffing and other expenses which may not be covered under the bond and state grant money?
Well, that's being actively discussed. What the sheriff has basically proposed is that we will have a considerable number of beds that we will not use immediately, and at least in the short term, we will lease those beds out to other agencies to help pay for the staffing costs of the new jail. He gave us a estimate of what he thought those additional staffing costs would be, and I think they were around $2 million. And that obviously would be a very significant increase in costs to the county if there were not an offset. So what we're looking at initially anyway is basically taking the excess capacity and for lack of a better term, renting that excess capacity to other jurisdictions. Actually, we're going to put a media tax on.
I mean, an occupancy tax should be placed on it, 18% each day. Obviously, we need this in our county, not only because of the guests that we house, but the growth, unfortunately, of what's to take place in that particular element of our society. Arnold, our man upstairs, is obviously developing a program, has developed a program to where he is now leasing beds for his other state guests in other states. So I'm sure, as Tom mentioned, I'm sure that we can take advantage of that. I sincerely hope, and I sincerely mean this, I sincerely hope that the Board of Supervisors and Sheriff Dennis Dowland have discussed this to nauseam before this was ever completed, because I hope it's not a situation where we once again decide to get into a situation that we can't afford. But I'm glad we do have the jail, and I have to give faith to our Board of Supervisors at present to solve the problem that you're presently giving us tonight. So I sincerely hope that they're all doing their job well. Thank you.
We thank you for your faith.
Well, certainly at this point, I'm not going to disagree with what Tom said about how they're currently viewing the budget. Do we have an estimate on how long it's going to take before the jail is completed and ready for occupancy?
No, we don't have a date of completion yet.
So that question may very well be solved by an improving economy, because it could be many years down the road. Well, it's going to be probably, what, 4?
It could well be something like that.
Okay, so if it's 4 years, part of the revenue stream issue may be solved by an improving economy. And at this point, I agree with Tom. I'm not going to disabuse or disagree with what we're doing with the budget in the future, projecting out. One of the things I would hope that we can do once the new budget is built is possibly look into using the existing facility to house our juveniles, because we can't, right now, as far as I understand, we're shipping them out. We don't have a juvenile facility, and I'd really like to see if we could keep our kids who are in trouble at home, closer to their families, and hopefully not lose them in the system. But at this point, I'm not going to disagree with Tom. I've seen the budget. I've actually printed it off. That's the banker in me. And I've actually started going through it. If any of you want a sleeping aid, just ask me. I'll give you a copy of the budget. Anytime you can't sleep, you just pull it out and start going through it. But I'm not going to disagree with Tom at this point.
Well, having not been in that loop either, I'll have to concede with the others. I hope that between now and that time that we can really take a look at those developer fees, those facilities fees, all those things that we haven't done in the past, and that the board will have the courage to actually implement them or order them to be built, and then they can implement them. I voted for the jail. I think it was an important thing. I think we've needed it for a long time. I was disappointed, though, that we didn't have the resources in the bank, so you and I, the citizens, aren't paying for this with our taxes. I think that's something that we have to think about with these fees. It's like Mr. Seaton was talking about in Angels Camp. They have considerably higher fees than we do, and they still get development. We need to really seriously look at that, so the citizens aren't constantly having to make up for what our government should be providing. I think Kathy had a great idea about the juvenile facility. I know for years we have sent our kids out and into other counties, and that's very expensive to buy those beds. We could be selling those beds, I would assume, to other counties. But I don't know the answer to that yet. I've looked at the budget. I'm used to looking at those government budgets from the school district, and they're very sleep-inducing, yes. But I want to learn more about this.
I supported the new jail because the sheriff said we have no credible threat of incarceration. We cannot have a justice system if there is no credible threat of punishment. So it's important that we have the jail. I don't think the idea of incarceration is something new, though. We could have had impact fees that would have addressed the deficit that was building as we tried to prepare to replace aging infrastructure. That's why we have depreciation in budgets, is to prepare to replace that which will be worn out. I hope that the new jail will be a cost-effective building. There's a number of design technologies, solar arrays, using smart light bulbs. I mean, every nickel is critical when you're talking about a $2 million hit to a budget. We need to make sure that the jail is a very smart building for dumb people. But we have to remember that our staff also works in that facility. And it needs to be a safe facility, and it needs to be a place that you want to come to work in, because you're doing hard work. So we need to balance the needs of our employees and the needs of the taxpayers, and have a critical threat to take care of wrongdoers. I believe there are some options available in the budget. The county has never updated the transfer occupancy tax. This is a tourist-funded fee. Tourists bring some of the ills of our community that winds up in jail. They need to pay their fair share. I believe if the county were to designate a substantial portion of an increase in the transfer occupancy tax to public safety, it would find the support of the community, and it would lead to a successful budget. Thank you, John.
Well, certainly leasing beds out is a viable option. Also, increasing the TOT tax is also something. If it's going to take 4 years to construct the jail before it's ready for use, right now the current TOT tax is 6% in Calaveras County. I was checking today, and national average is about 10.5%. Some places in San Francisco area, Bay Area, it goes up to 13%. That tax is a tax that's charged to people that are either campers, RV spaces, bed and breakfast, motels, hotels that stay less than 30 days. So most of that tax is going to be charged from other counties. We're finally finding a way to tax somebody and get their tax dollars from the other counties, or even outside the United States, or outside this state, or anywhere. Certainly that increase over a 4-year period would be significant enough to start a fund to pay for the additional staff that's needed at the jail. Hopefully by that time the economics will turn around. Usually it takes about, after you start hitting the bottom of, like we're supposedly hitting now, it starts peaking it back up. It goes in waves in economic terms. If we're ready for it, the tax base will be increased here in the county, and certainly be able to pay for some of this additional staffing. Thank you.
Well, if the sheriff says that one way that we can earn the money to pay for the employees of the new jail is to lease beds, I think that obviously we should be leasing beds. But what I have always admired about Sheriff Downham is that he is able to ferret out funds more effectively than I have seen anybody else ever do it. He has been able to get grant monies for different law enforcement activities to take care of different issues for our county. And I think he would be a fabulous resource, and I'm sure he's already thinking about it as to how we can actually pay for the new employees at the jail. If you look at the county website, they're already advertising for positions to actually staff the new jail. Now, TOT funds, obviously that's already been mentioned. We are very, very low when it comes to TOT funds. Obviously that has to be approved by the voters. But I think it's something we need to look at, that a portion of that go towards law enforcement. And I think this goes back to also retail sales tax. If we had more retail sales tax dollars coming into the county, we would have a little bit more breathing space as to how we are going to pay for the employees and the staffing levels that are needed at the new jail. And quite frankly, the county government is going to grow as the population grows, and we need to figure out a way to pay for those extra employees as well.
Well, I like the idea of leasing beds, and if we could do something with the alcohol and meth, reduce the meth use and reduce the number of beds that we require, then we can lease more beds to the state and federal government, and maybe and we'd get a lot more money that way. The thing about the transient occupancy tax. I think people don't understand it, and I think the next time it comes around, we need to educate people on what it is. People here don't stay in our hotels. It's people, it's visitors, it's tourists that come here and stay in our hotels. They're the ones that are going to pay it. We're not going to pay it unless we stay in our own hotels. Why would we do that? Thank you.
Well, I'm really sorry to have the last word on this one because, in fact, my answer is I don't know. I do know that there are some factors involved, however. The first is that this county is running approximately a $1.5 million structural deficit as we speak. The second truth of it is that we are facing, and that these staff have to come out of general fund. This is not something that you get from a grant, this is, at least not long term. This is going to be part of our structural debt. Secondly, the size of this jail is not yet fully determined, but size does matter. If we have a bigger jail, it costs more to build, but we also have more space to rent. Even if we rent every space in the biggest jail that's being considered, we still have $600,000 more to add per year to our structural deficit. Add to that the fact that the national economy, and by the way, I'm not responsible for it, in case you've been reading the local blogs, but the national economy is not going very well, and we seem to be tracking close with it. And the fact of the matter is that if we have a structural deficit of 1.5 now, if we have declining revenues, that's going to be problematic. Add to this the fact that the jail staffing doesn't begin when you get a full jail and you're renting out beds. It happens well before, even almost a year before you're even fully in, because you got to train people, you got to have the thing up and ready. It's got to be fully staffed to make ready for the people who are coming in. This is problematic, and that's why I don't know. I agree with everybody that it would be nice to build a robust, well thought through economy that employs a lot of people and brings in great revenues. But my guess is we're going to have a jail well before that happens. So I think this will be a big challenge for whoever is elected to the next Board of Supervisors. And I think it's going to be one of the number of dilemmas we have about how to staff the services necessary.
All right, the next question. And I think this one will, with how you've answered some of the questions so far, I think it's good for you to start off on each class. Okay. Question number 5. What ideas do you have for attracting or recruiting new business to Calaveras County?
Well, the practices that I have with regards to your question is what I've been doing all my life. My background is corporate development. I've been involved with domestic and international companies for well over 30 years. Part of the responsibilities that I've held was acquiring companies, redirecting, managing, refocusing, and enticing them to be profitable with regards to either their product line, their service line, or their employees, or their main goals, and with regards to the future of their companies. So with that in mind, I think the Board of Supervisors need to do this. With all of the Board of Supervisors and their day-to-day responsibilities, I think they're overcome at times with details of items that may need to be addressed at different levels of the county government. I think the Board of Supervisors should have a task force that search out companies in California or out of the K-State, but there's plenty in California, and I know quite a few of them myself, that should be enticed to come into into Calaveras County. And they can do that by putting together if for lack of a better term, a promotional program, going to these companies, the presidents of these companies, and saying, we can offer you, and think of what Calaveras County can offer you, a lifestyle that they are presently not even able to comprehend, to give their employees better benefits as far as life is concerned. We can also entice them by coming into Calaveras County and say that we have 2 high schools, maybe 3, excuse me if I didn't know that, certainly 2 high schools and a junior college that can give you a training facility and can give you a employment opportunity that they are presently that's not available. Also, most of these companies are paying anywhere from $6 to $12 a square foot for their warehousing operation at present, and we can certainly beat that anytime we care to. But I think we need to market Calaveras County as an opportunity for growth for those companies. Thank you.
Well, business development is what my career has been all about. And as I alluded to before, I think we need to take a very proactive approach. First, talking to our citizens of each community. You know, there's no reason why San Andreas has to be Valley Springs or Valley Springs has to be San Andreas. They're both distinct communities with their own identities. And we should always respect those citizens as such. So we need to talk to them, ask them, as I said, what businesses, what light industries would you welcome? And then actively seek them out. Go and talk to those businesses that we would like to have come to Calaveras County. Another thing I think we need to do is think outside the box and actively explore those industries that perhaps we haven't pursued before, but could be very beneficial to Calaveras County and provide jobs. For example, I'd like to explore something that they have down in Southern California. They're in the process of building a solar energy power plant. Now, we have any number of locations in Calaveras County that could accommodate a solar energy plant. And the one that they're building down near San Diego can provide enough power to actually provide the electricity for 145,000 homes. How wonderful would it be if we had a green industry here in Calaveras County that provides jobs, that doesn't provide much in the way of waste, that provides a revenue stream, and that can keep us environmentally protected, if you will, in the event that things, God forbid, ever got worse. Just the jobs alone. But again, you have to go back to thinking outside the box, being creative, and being comfortable going to talk to businesses and presenting Calaveras County, and this is why you want to do business here.
Well, this question goes back to what I was talking about before, and on all these problems are interrelated. I think one of the first things that we need to concentrate on, and we are doing that, is our community plans and our general plan. I think completing these community plans, which requires broad-based public input, is one of the most important things, and I think it'll open the door to beneficial, clean, and light industrial, commercial, and companies that will provide good jobs. Again, I think we need to recognize our assets. We are rich in agriculture, in tourism, in history, in recreation, and there's a lot of businesses that would thrive here. For instance, how about boat repair for the many boats we have on the lake? Lots of tourism, lots of recreation, lots of agricultural stuff. We come back to our infrastructure, and I think one of the things that we need to take a look at with our infrastructure is, I think Steve was talking about the many small utility districts that we have. Let's get together with them. Let's try and create a common vision. Let's see if we can generate together some funding, some grants, maybe together we can get big loans to take care of this infrastructure problem. It's not just going to happen. Again, our housing element. We need to include the housing element in the general plan. We need to provide real housing for real live incomes, whatever range they are. There's a huge range. And again, we need to develop clear rules for development. Developers want to know what is expected of them, and we need to provide that. We have to stop.
Well, what are we doing to attract new business? One thing we know is tax incentives usually don't work. They're short term. As soon as they run out, so does the enterprise. What we've done is bring Amy Wetzel in from a well-known company that looks at retail as kind of a matchmaking. They find communities that have needs and they match them to enterprises that have services. This is a win-win situation, and it's one that engages existing retailers in the process of either augmenting or expanding their business model to embrace perhaps a chain or other a source of goods and services. So we are doing things right now. This is part of the Economic Development Summit that the City Council and the Board of Supervisors have jointly endorsed, and we're working on actively. In fact, we're meeting here in San Andreas tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. But the foundation of this is to lead from our strengths. And our strengths are numerous. We all love our quality of life, our open space, our weather. All of those things are wonderful components. But we have more than that. Because of the mining activity, we have hydroelectric energy that is world class. We were among the very first communities to have electric lights in California because of the Utica Power Authority. Or the power system for the Utica mine. We have the baseline to begin with. We already have the UPA. We also have hydroelectric generation out of New Melones through the CPPA. We have these assets. What we need to do is leverage them and enhance them to attract energy-starved companies. We need to be able to wave our flags. We need to sell our green power to a local user. Thank you.
I think we need to develop an economic development board comprised of a business representative from each district. I think the chamber needs to have a member on that board. I think one of the supervisors should be on that board. And I think that they need to develop a short-term and long-term strategic plan on how to entice businesses to relocate or start up or expand here in Calaveras County. I also believe that we need to develop a criteria that would put any company that wants to expand or relocate or build here in Calaveras County, if they meet a certain criteria, that they would be put on a fast-track permit system, and that permit would be issued if they meet a certain criteria within 30 to 45 days, so they could get started on their construction. I believe that the strategic plan that would be developed for short-term and long-term would have to be a 5-point or a 7-point system. That system would be developed in the initial stages of this board, with pulling together all the experts that are on the board and get it out there and sell the county to outside or businesses outside the county. I think part of that strategic plan would involve sending a group of people to different areas within the state or even outside the state, to business organizations or other places to entice companies to come here and explain the strategic plan to them. Thank you.
think one way that we can attract new businesses is to actually partner more effectively with the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber is a resource that new businesses can not only use, but can also offer a mentoring situation for new businesses coming into the county. Obviously, new businesses, we need certain issues taken care of. We need to be able to have the infrastructure for new businesses. And I think the Chamber of Commerce can actually give new businesses who are looking into coming into the area a very realistic viewpoint of what it is to move into a rural community. It isn't like working in an urban neighborhood. I think the benefits outweigh the negatives. And one of the negatives is we don't have the infrastructure. We don't have very many pipelines coming into the county for high speed. I think some of the best businesses for us to attract would come out of Silicon Valley. And I think the way to do that is to actually market into that area. But we need to be able to have an area that they come to and would effectively be able to do business. And the only way to do that really is to have the infrastructure laid for it.
I think that part of the problem with attracting business is just our population. We're pretty spread out. I mean, it's a long ways from West Point to Angels Camp. But attracting businesses would be possibly, board planning, removing or limiting fees, removing roadblocks. The hoop jumping could be maybe reduced that businesses would have to go through. Make it easier for them to get in here. Thank you.
As board chair, I was able to effectively advocate and win a vote for putting an economic element in our economic development element in our general plan. The key question will be what kind of implementation measures will we get? We need to define what it is we're trying to attract and where we want to put it. One of the things we need to do is capitalize on our existing assets. It's different in different places. For instance, in District 2, the Coast to Crest Trail is going through. There are a lot of ancillary businesses that could attach to that if we were having a plan to connect West Point and Railroad and McCollum Hill into that. The North Fork of the McCollum River is a tremendous asset. Literally, millions of dollars of rafting revenue goes up north of the American River. We have the premier Class 4 river left in California that's not being run, and we have the best company, oars, that would like to run it. Those are kinds of things, building on our existing assets, that we could do a lot with. I don't think it's all about retail stores, although I think it's important. But we need to recognize that there are many different sectors of this economy that need to be helped. I also agree with people who said we need to facilitate it. But it's not, it's about time. Money sometimes gets spent when inflation takes away whatever, and increases in building costs take away with our delays. And I think that when we decide, and one of the implementation measures we've got to do is to, when we find something we really want, let's do something about it and have the implementation measures necessary to move this to the front of the pile. I'm working right now with an international company that would like to relocate and are very excited that we have the Chamber of Commerce, we have 3 different county departments, and a number of people ready to meet with them on Friday and talk about how we might actually get this right. Some of our businesses, as you say, you take a look at how Trinitas has been handled, you can say that's not necessarily the model of how to handle business. I'd like to show something different in this new project.
John, would you repeat the question?
What ideas do you have for attracting or recruiting new business to Calaveras County?
Well, I'll just go back to my theme. The first thing is we have to upgrade our infrastructure. There's no sense, you're not going to attract anybody with the infrastructure we have. San Andres is sanitary, is basically unable to accept new hookups. Same with Murphy's. Valley Springs, Angels is having problems with their sanitary system, et cetera. You can talk about economic development. I'm all for an economic development element in the general plan. But if we just don't get the basics right, then we're not going to attract the development we would like to see. So the first thing to do is get the infrastructure up and in place so that the businesses can come to the county, and particularly to I'll just speak for myself, particularly to the Highway 4 corridor. Secondly, we have to have a much better regulatory process and processing process within county government to handle applications when they come in. I don't look at government as being, sort of a great advocate. That's up to the private sector to do their own feasibility. It's up to the chamber. We have a new business council in the county that's, I think, focused quite heavily on the Highway 4 corridor. That's their responsibilities. I look at government as being more like a referee. We set the rules, and we see that everybody plays by the rules, and they play by them equally, et cetera, as opposed to being an advocate. I don't think government should be in the place of being an advocate. We as a board should set the rules, and set the policies, and see that everybody plays by them. But if you want to have business development, the natural place is to use the resources we already have, which is our current demographics and our current population, and provide additional services to that demographic. Thank you.
In time, I think we may skip a couple. Just skip a couple questions.
I think we'd all agree on. We're all going to be in agreement on one thing.
Can we vote on that?
Yeah.
We've already driven nearly half the people out of the room.
Yeah, exactly.
There we go. All right, so we're gonna skip a couple questions. Go to the last one, and.
That wasn't the last one?
No. Yeah. And what we'll do is, this is kind of a light question. We'll do this as a 1-minute answer. Okay?
1 minute answer.
1 minute answer. And at the end of 1 minute for Lee Seaton, we'll start going. Oh, I'm just kidding. No. Just kidding, Lee. It is, if elected to supervisor, what one thing would you change about county government? This is a question to be answered if they were queen or king for a day. So basically, they wouldn't need the votes of the other board. They're the rulers. So if you were king or queen of the county for a day, what would you change? And you'll have a minute to answer this.
Can we select if we want to be king or queen?
Well, as long as the power is equal, I don't really care. The one thing I'd do if I had the big golden wand is I'd provide consistency. We have a lot of very hardworking, dedicated people within that county government offices. And right now, the message is so muddled, the interpretation so loose, so varied, so changing, that when somebody walks in and says, "Hi, I want to build a home," they don't get the same answer at 9 o'clock that they're going to get at 1 o'clock. And I want to see consistency brought back. I want to see a message that's precise. There's a young couple that I frequently refer to as my poster children for why I'm running, because they've been trying to build a home for 4 years, and they have yet to be able to break ground. It's not a McMansion. It's nothing fancy. They just want to build a home. And 4 years into the process, they still haven't broken ground. They finally got their septic tank after 1.5 years of getting their profile holes approved. But I want consistency, and I want a message that everybody gets the same thing.
Well, if I were queen for a day,
And by the way, both of us have been.
That's right.
if I were queen for a day and could, I would love to sit with the other supervisors and really create a strong vision for the future and agree that the public is important and the public needs to participate, and that's the way to have less acrimony with the citizens and to move forward and have an action plan to actually get where we want to go.
King for a day. Well, the first thing I'd do is abolish monarchy because we've had too much closed government. The king for the day would be to decree that all government meetings would be open, all discussions would be held with public participation, and that the people would always be in charge.
I would fully staff all the departments in the county, and I would give them the pay parallel to the larger counties in the county, in the state. And that's what I would do. Thank you.
Well, I think most of us have been asked this before on our candidates shows. And for consistency's sake, I do want to say that I believe that we need to protect our agriculture in this county, or else everything else goes down like a pack of cards. Because of that, if I was queen for a day, I would ensure that should the Williamson Act not be state funded any longer, that Calaveras County would have some sort of mechanism in place so that we could support our own agricultural community and make sure that we had our own Williamson Act in place.
Well, I think I'd go visit our neighbors in Amador County and learn what they do with the permitting process that makes it like 4 times faster than ours.
Similar to a previous speaker, I would abdicate as my first act as king. King George was wrong. Thomas Paine was right. Democracy, while difficult and sometimes painful, actually does work. And I would invite people to continue to practice it with skill, greater information, a transparent government, one that is clearly listening to its constituency, and get on with work. The process of agreeing with one another is essential, and democracy is the only vehicle to achieve it.
Well, from the question, I think the question limited us to one course of action. So I would take my course of action and basically say I would like to address deficiencies in the Community Development Agency. Thank you.
Well, as king of the day, I would like to see a white stallion coming down the highway. No, actually, a cattle drive down Main Street, Murphy.
Continuing.
I would like to see qualified, experienced people in the positions of responsibility in our government. When I say that, I mean not only giving them the position, but giving them the authority and the responsibility to carry out that particular position and its requirements. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think one little closing, I think from many of these people personally, I mean, it takes a lot of commitment to actually step into the public arena and run. And I think that from watching the board the last couple of years and everything else, this is a full-time position, and the people that they spend countless hours doing these jobs, whether we agree or disagree with them on every particular item. I've always had a deep and heartfelt appreciation for the people who sit on the board and the people that run, and the willingness to put themselves out there. Because sometimes politics can be a contact sport, and
Only in Washington.
and I know for my perspective, I just want to say thank you. And I that's say, you want to finish up? Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I'd like to remind everybody about, this was issues that were countywide, but coming up in the next early May, on May 5th, we have at Native Sons Hall in Murphy, we have the District 4 candidates that will be having a candidates night. And then follow that on May 7th here in San Andreas, District 1 will be meeting and talking about issues, probably within their district. And then on May 8th, we will have District 2 up in Moke Hill at that town hall. So, if we get the word out, it's a good opportunity for the citizens to be able to hear what these folks are standing for and what their beliefs are and what they want to do if elected to the position of supervisor. So, obviously, on behalf of the Deputy Sheriff's Association, I thank you. I know it does take courage, and I do have admiration for you to step out and to take on the challenge of running for the position. So, like I said, on behalf of the association, we thank you.
Thank you.